All right, so we are ready to start the Power Panto, which if you have QCT5 Pro, there is no easier way to do a pantograph. That's edge to edge and you're quilting off the edges. So right now I am in, I'm not using gold, I'm just using Pro, so I have that selected. So I'm going to start pantograph, and we need to go into the mode. So Panto mode, we're going to choose Power Panto, okay? And you have different choices here than basic and easy mode. So kind of a little more limited, but that's okay. So the first thing you want to do is set your width. So if you're going to use the yellow ruler to do it, and you don't have to, you could tap and get the keypad. But let's see. We're going to use the yellow ruler. And then a new feature with version 5 is having this little black sewing machine. And that's so that QCT will tell you where the center mark on your quilt is. You get to mark it. It'll move your needle over it, and then you can mark it. And then when you get to your quilting screen and starting out with your first zone, you can just move your needle right over that spot, and you're ready to go. Some quilts it's easy to tell without having to use that, but others aren't. So it's there for you if you need it. So you're going to move your needle to the intersection of where you want the leftmost stitches to hit and the topmost stitches to hit. Used to, before this little black sewing machine, you could just move it anywhere along the left edge. But now you want it at the top left corner, so to speak, for your pantograph. So I've got my needle moved over where the top stitches would hit and the left stitches would hit. That intersection up in the top corner. And I'm going to tap on that left side of the slanted green line. Now when I move it over to the right side, at this point, it can be anywhere up and down the right edge that I want it to be. It doesn't matter. And then tap there. And that gives me my quilt width. And I'm going to go ahead and move my machine somewhere near the top center so it doesn't have to move as far. And I'm going to tap on this little black sewing machine. And it will ask me if my needle is up. And so now it is moving to the top center, okay? And now I would mark that spot, okay? I would, with a marking pencil, if you're sewing off the edge, you're in the batting, so it doesn't even matter. And so now you say apply measurement. And so now the measurements you took are in your total width. Your total height is still showing from where you were when you set your safe area. So I now need to tap on the total height, and that's going to be, and I get a keypad, that's going to be the height of your quilt. And I never had version 4 standard. I only ever had beginnings. But I would hear people talk about, well, what should the total height be? Do you take an inch off because you don't want to end up quilting into the batting because the quilt design drew up your quilt top? Well, you don't have to worry about that anymore. If you know that your quilt length is 50 inches, you can even put 51 and you're good. You could put but go ahead and don't stress. Just go ahead and put your the height of your quilt, because there's a feature that you do the exact partial row that you need once you get to the bottom. Okay, so now I'm going to select my pattern, and I'm going to go into a different pattern because I want one that's going to have some fun nesting to it. Let's see. Let's go in my creative stitches and pick one of these fun ones. And I do want to say something that not all patterns play nice with Power Panto. If you need to stagger, then you don't have a stagger feature here. You have all these little flip features, but you don't have stagger. But a lot of patterns do work, and if as long as you're choosing one of the ones that they play nice together, which a lot do, then this is so fast. Now you'll notice it looks a little jumbled. And I'm going to go ahead and tap on the little magnifying glass and magnify it a little bit. You can see that it's jumbled. A lot of the time, all you have to do is just tap on the vertical spacing, and that's all you need to do. Just until your eyes are happy and you think, yeah, I think I like that. And if you want to blow it up bigger, you can. Then tap on fit, and you're back in your screen. Now, if I wanted to change the pattern height, if I thought, you know, I want it bigger, then I can tap on that and change it, or I can tap on the minus and plus. I can also do that. One thing to be very careful about is the horizontal spacing, which is going to spread it out. You can literally spread it out so that they quit touching, and you're going to cause jump stitches if you do that. So my recommendation, don't do that. Then you have another choice down here called pattern fitting, and that has to do with the way it wraps horizontally, which is that left block, and then the way that it wraps vertically. So it's just a cosmetic thing of which do you think looks better. Do you like the way it looks when you tap there, or when you tap here, or you don't have to tap either at all. Just like I said, just a little cosmetic thing there of which you want. And then the flip sections, each of these squares with blue dots has two choices in it. So you can tap twice on each one and see, well, that looks kind of cool. And you can, and Power Panto is supposed to be so fast, but you can play with these little dots forever because it just gives you some really fun, cool things. And then when you decide you're through playing, then you tap back on the flip and the red X, and you're back like you were. And when you have your pattern designed like you want, which I think I do, and you know, how long did that take? It was very quick. So I'm going to save it here. And there's two places you're going to save this. And this one that I'm about to use is the one if you wanted to make changes. If you wanted to open the pattern up later and make changes. Maybe you do very similar size quilts and you just want to keep this saved. Then that would be good, because then you could tweak it however you wanted to. But this is the way you'll save it, that you can make changes. So I tapped on this Save Panto down here, and we're just gonna say class. So CLASS. We're gonna type on Enter and then tap on Save, and now it's saved. And if I want to check it, I can tap on Read Panto, and there it is. There's the class one. So I'm just gonna X out of that. So I know for sure it got saved in here. That's if you're paranoid, then that's how you satisfy that. So so at this point we are literally ready to sew in zones. And someone asked earlier about places a single pattern. I would not do that because it's going to be very intense on your laptop at this point. That's good for when you're doing sections, or Marie may want to pop in on the post and just say, when all would you choose place as a single pattern? So Marie, if you'll just type out a nice answer for that, I'll keep going. So I'm going to tap on Sew in Zones, and you see it does this row pattern thing. It kind of has to work its way down, which if you were doing a king size quilt could take a few seconds. So that's why you really do want to answer yes to this question. So people can... It says, would you like to save this zone sewing session? And you absolutely want to say yes. In the earlier tutorial, I had said no, but you want to say yes. And you can give it the same name. So we're going to say CLASS. And you'll notice there's a folder setting here, Auto Zone Projects. Don't click on that. Just let that alone. Just let it sit there. Just when this screen comes up, just enter the name you want, tap on Enter, and tap on Save. Okay, and now I'm going to go back. Normally we wouldn't go back, but I'm going to go back, and I see blue dots. Uh-oh. You shouldn't ever see blue dots with a Power Panto. So, but I should have X'd back to that. Do you see this up in the top right, this green? It says resume zone sewing session. That is where the file we just saved is. Okay, so if I were to open this right now.
While we're waiting, there's another question. Somebody's asking if you could choose a pattern that is standard with QCT, since they don't have a collection of other patterns and they want to be able to pull up the same one that they already have.
Okay. All right, we'll do that. Okay, and we will go back and pick a pattern that comes with QCT. So when you need to stop for the day and close out, when you open back up and you open Pantograph, this will be where you go to get that file. Unless you wanted to make changes. I don't know why you'd want to do that mid-quilt, but if you did, then you would open Read Panto. But if you want to continue just like you were, that's where you would open your file. And you'll see it has a little picture of it. And so you just tap on that. And then this is what's so cool. Remember when we first went to Sew Endzones and we had to watch that blue scrolling thing? When you open your file this way, you don't get that. So it's much quicker. And as soon as you tap on open, you get a question there, or some information, not a question, some information. So I tap on OK. And what it does, it takes you directly into Zone Manager, so that if you knew that you needed to say start with Zone 3, you could arrow down to Zone 3 and make sure that everything was set like you wanted and say OK. And then it gives you questions. I'm just going to say do not show again because we need to start back. I know why that blue dot is there. So let's go back into Zone Manager like we were just starting out at the top. And so yes, we want to open it. It kind of gives you a scary message. It's just saying that if you have already placed your zone, you're going to need to replace it. But we're going to go back up to Zone 1, and then you have the little partial row at the top that will get straight line stitches. So this sewing direction, I need it to be continuous. When I have selected the zone placement center. If I were to tap on that and have the four point thing, I don't get the partial diamonds that are used for doing the partial row at the bottom, and I want that. So I definitely want to have the center placement. I can select whether a zone is always going to start at the left, or if I toggle it, it's going to alternate. It's going to start over here, then start over there, then start over there. But we're just going to let it always start from the left. And then these three things.
Okay. One thing Maria's suggesting when you get around to it, she says use shamrocks and leaves.
Okay, I'm going to do the shamrocks. I'm going to go back and I'm going to select the
and at one point, Dita is asking the difference between Panto and Power Panto.
Well, I think the question is more Power Panto versus Basic Mode. So they're both pantographs. It's just a matter of what it takes to get to the quilt screen with them. So, but I did go back and I changed it to be the shamrocks. That I selected the pattern, and those are the continuous line that come with QCT, and it's over there, shamrocks. So I did that, and then went back in here so that I could tell what I was seeing. When you get these really big quilts, for me anyway, it's hard to just know how are they really nesting. So I really like being able to go in here and see. Well, I'm in the magnifying glass right now, and if you just put your finger on the screen, and this is with Design Magnified, you can just move your screen around and shift around how you're seeing the design. But just know that when you're in the magnifying glass, you can put your finger on the screen and move your finger around, and it will shift your design around. Like if you want to look at a different spot with the design, because some of the designs are big, and so you are able to shift it around with your finger on the screen. Okay, so I had pulled up the shamrocks. Um, so now we're ready to sew in zones. So this is our initial time, and I'm not going to save this time because we had already gone through saving, so I won't take the time to do that. So I'm going to tap on no, but you would. I need to go back into Zone Manager, and I want to select Continuous. So I've got that selected. We're on Zone 1. Whatever zone is selected over here, when you tap on OK, whatever zone number is showing here, that's the number that's the zone that's going to stitch. And there's a little red 1 there. And as you tap down, there's a little red 2, so you can see that. There's also another choice up here. I can tap on Show Zones. And in beginnings, where we were talking about the overlap between nested rows, you actually see it on this screen. You'll see the little gray line there and a little gray line there. So that's showing, it's lining up on the lowest stitch and highest stitch, just so you can see where your actual 2 rows are, but they're nested. So that's why you get that little overlapping lines there. So it's kind of interesting there. And we know that 95 for a Unique 21. And when you set your machine up in the at the home screen under Information, QCT will default you to the height. You can change it. Like right now, it's 95, 15.88. If I were to go in there and say 90, then it changed it to 15.05. So if you wanted to get crafty about what your zone size was, like one lady said, I really just want to only stitch 1 row at a time. Well, this is one way to do it. Go in there to the height and just change it, and then that will force your zone in being smaller than really what it has to be. But it forces one row at a time to stitch in a zone if for whatever reason you want to do that. So you can get crafty with that. And so now we have a center placement, and we have the sew from left and continuous. So we're going to tap on OK. And you'll notice there are no blue dots. And as long as that continuous is selected, there shouldn't be any blue dots. If you see any, then maybe it's a pattern that's just not playing well, say up at the top. If you do want to get rid of blue dots, then you click on Optimize, say Remove All, OK, and that will get rid of them all. Right now the pattern is shifted to the top left corner, so that's why you see all this space on the right and none on the left, because it hasn't been placed. So that's all QCT knows to do is shift it to the top left corner. So you're not losing any of your design right there. It's just not placed yet. So when I move my needle over where it needs to be, that center mark, then I tap in this green rectangle down here, and that's what is called placing your zone. So I have just placed my zone, and I know that it's placed because these blue diamonds are now lit up in blue. When they are in gray, you know that the zone has not been placed. And another comment, if you do need to optimize, don't do that until you come back out of Zone Manager, because if you optimize first and then go into Zone Manager, you lose that optimizing you did and you have to do it all over again. So just hold off until you go into Zone Manager before you do that. Go into your settings and make sure the speed you want to sew on, your tie-off count, or if you want it to be back and forth. If you want your automatic bobbin pull selected, I don't. You can tap on the minus and plus, or you can tap directly on the number to get a keypad. So get all these settings like you want them and tap on OK. And now you are literally ready to pull your bobbin and sew. So I would, because I don't want to wait for QCT to move my machine from the top all the way over there, I would go ahead and move my needle close to where I think that green is, because I think it's faster. And I'm I'm not really going to do it because I don't want to take the time to stitch today. So I pulled the thread out of the needle just in case. So if I were pulling bobbin, I would say okay, and then however you want to pull your bobbin. So you could do single stitch here, and and then you would do that and hit sew. I'm just going to hit back for right now. I want to show you what happens when you finish a zone though. So right now I'm going to say release carriage, and that lets me move my machine. And I'm going to move it somewhere near where I think this red is, because that's where it's going to end. Because I want to show you finishing a zone. And so I'm going to use repair pattern to do it. So I've tapped, and as long as the zone has been placed, I can tap on repair pattern. So I'm going to say closest stitch in this case. My needle is up. And now I'm just going to say sew. But it's not, it's sewing, but there's no thread in it, so. Okay, so now supposedly we finished on our zone, and you absolutely want to pull your bobbin before you tap on finished, because otherwise if you don't pull your bobbin, you're going to have it connected here, and the machine is going to move to the center, and that bobbin thread is going to be pulling underneath. So make sure you pull your bobbin before you tap on finish zone. So at this point, I would have my machine moving freely, and I would go ahead and physically move it near to the center, and then tap on that, and then it's going to give you some questions about have you finished, and you can tap on do not show again. I'm just going to tap on that. And it's going to make sure my needle is up. So now what it's done, it's gone to the exact point that I need to move my needle over after I advance my quilt. So you have a variety of ways. You can tap on over here to mark the next zone. You can mark a single stitch. You can do a sew mark. You can pull the bobbin. One thing I want to show is this shows 1 inch square area around that marked spot, and this blue shows the stitching. Now if the next row to come were to stitch up into here, it would also show. With this particular design, there's no stitches that come up there, but if I guess at this point it will be the third row. If the third row had stitches that came within this one inch radius, you would also see them. So if you're using tape, you'll know if it's going to get stitched on or not. So we're just going to say that we're marking it with a removable marker. So we're going to do that. But I like that because you don't lose that mark at all if you need to go back and replace. So I'm going to say continue, and it's mad because it thinks I didn't do anything. It doesn't know I used a marker, but yes, I absolutely did mark it. And then it talks about moving your machine. So I can say, okay, I could have said don't show me again, and make sure the needle is up. And then what your machine does is it moves over where it needs to start for the next zone. So, and then that's what it's asking. It says move the fabric, or what it's telling, move the fabric so that the marker is beneath the sewing machine needle. And you don't have to have it, that would be really hard to do. But if it's close, then you can put it exactly. You're going to be able to move it exactly over that mark. And then it says, have you moved the fabric? And we're just going to say, yeah, I have. And so now you're ready to move your needle over the mark that you made and touch again down here. And you can see it showing zone 2, and it's shifted back to the top left corner because it's not placed. You can see that the diamonds are gray, and you have this extra white area over here. So as I move my needle over that mark, then I'm going to tap in there, and now it shifted it into the center, and I'm ready to pull my bobbin and sew. Okay, so we're going to pretend that I'm at the bottom, that zone 2 is the end of the line. And as it works out, almost this whole row is going to be stitching down in the batting. Well, you don't want that. So you move your needle to however far below the bottom edge of your quilt, depending on how straight it is once you got down there. So we'll say it's really straight, so maybe a quarter of an inch. So you move your needle a quarter of an inch below that raw edge of your quilt top, okay? And so I'm going to move my machine down here. And at that point, and the reason I'm able to do this is because I've placed the zone. If I hadn't, I wouldn't be able to use these yet. So you got to have your zone placed to use them. So now I've moved my needle down a quarter of an inch below the raw edge, and I'm tapping on those partial diamonds. And thankfully, I get an out of safe area pink because that's what you want to see with this feature. And now there's going to be a straight line across the bottom. And I can toggle back right here if I wanted to. That brings it all back. But if I toggle here, I am actually ready at this point to pull bobbin and sew. When I touch pull bobbin, the machine's going to move up here to where this green dot is, where it's going to start stitching. So I touch that and it goes back up there and hit sew, and it finishes with exactly perfect straight line across the bottom, a quarter inch below the edge of the quilt top. And then when you get finished, there's no need to touch finish, but you're done at that point. So so that's how this all works. And you have your toolbox here if you needed to. If you wanted just to release the carriage, of course you have that same choice here. If you needed to put in a new bobbin and test it, then you would say release sewing machine. That gives control back to the machine and takes it away. So if I do that, you get this message there that says, you know, your machine is now in control, not QCT. Don't tap on OK until you're done, because as soon as you tap on OK, control goes back to QCT. So at this point, we're finished with Power Panto. So it's pretty easy. And just a reminder that if you didn't finish, then you would look at what zone had you finished and make yourself a little note and say, I need to start with zone 4. And then when you go into, when you come back again and you touch on pantograph, then you say resume zone sewing session. And I didn't save the shamrocks. But you would pick on whatever one that you had saved. Like I had I had saved that one. Okay, so I would go in here and open it, and as soon as I opened it, it would take me to Zone Manager instead of me doing Read Panto and picking it here. Because if I did, then when I tapped on Sew in Zones, I would get that little blue back and forth pattern row thing where it's going through it. So I haven't even looked at the handout, so I hope that I touched on everything. Does anyone have any questions about Power Panto? So the thing to remember with these two files, if you saved it down here in Save Panto and you open it up and Read Panto, the file will open here in the Panto Stacker screen and you can make changes. If you open your file up in Resume Zone, it's not going to open it in the Panto Stacker screen. You can't make any more changes to this file. It takes you directly to Zone Manager. So once you save it as the zone file, there's no more changes that you can make to it.